This is the Intermission Podcast.
We want to get to know our homeboys and homegirls and invite you into our space.
It's a whole mood of positivity.
The Intermission Podcast. Welcome back to the Intermission Podcast, a break with your homegirls.
This is Men Are Trash. But let me ask my homeboy.
Yes, indeed. And it's time for roll call. I am Jessica E. Williams, aka CEO J. Will.
And I am Jessie Denise.
And I'm Ivana.
It's going to be a doozy today. It's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be.
So today we have our homeboys joining us.
That's right. We have our homeboy Knight, who is in Paris, France, currently. He is a hip-hop artist, a hip-hop professor. I'll let him get into that more, okay? And one of my dearest friends, like my bro, so I'm very excited for you all to meet him today.
And we also have our boy, who is an actor. You all may recognize his face, but he is our brother in Christ, and he is here to give some perspective. We have our boy, Brandon Fobbs.
So, man, let's get into it, boys. It's about to be interesting. So let's ask our homeboys. All right, DJ, cut it, DJ, cut it.
Probably was it Martin or Def Jam? All right, cut that. Showing my age.
We all remember Def Jam here, okay?
Okay.
All right, y'all.
Damn, is he funny?
Welcome to the Intermission Podcast and all of the craziness that is us.
A lot of craziness.
But y'all know us, so y'all know how we are.
Yes. Fire on here.
For sure. So our highlight, which y'all may or may not care about. So we've been posting about these like really awesome weddings that have been going on because, you know, it's a dark time. It's a lot of foolishness from 45 and the like. And so when we see, you know, sort of these communal events happening, Elaine Wellworth, who used to run Vogue, she had this really cool wedding that she did at her stoop in Brooklyn. That was awesome. So her and her fiance were like, we're going to keep our wedding date. We don't care about no pandemic. And so they were able to have this whole communal experience for their neighbors in Brooklyn. Everybody was social distancing. Everyone had their mask on, but it was a really cool event. So we were like, oh, that makes us feel good to see something positive in light of so much darkness. Ladies, fellas, I don't know if y'all want to add something to that. Did y'all see it? Did you not see it? How did you feel about it? Let me know. What's up?
I didn't see it, but it sounds like a beautiful thing if people are going to still get together. Like you saying, look, we're going to get married on this day. I don't care what, nothing, hella high water or pandemic ain't going to break us up or break up our date. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't heard about it. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm just, I guess, surprised that people are still getting weddings off. You know, congratulations to them. Yeah. Sounds cool. Cool way to get it off.
Yeah, it was like a whole block party. It's so pretty. They had flowers. It was beautiful.
How they do that with social distancing?
They did.
They
were like separated in the streets and whatnot. It was really cool.
So it was cool.
It wasn't like 150 people out there.
Yeah.
It was like neighbors were hanging out of their windows, and it was really
What?
Nice.
Yeah.
Savon?
I sat on their stoop.
Oh, I think you said helicopters too.
What?
They got helicopters too. It was not funny.
What?
No, on their stoop. Like they were just on their stoops. Like, you know, it was super cool. And the thing about it is I feel like people put so much emphasis on the wedding and not the marriage. And it's like, y'all want to entertain these folks, or y'all want you want to be one and have your union. You know what I mean? Like it was more important for them to be married than to have their wedding. And I feel like even without a pandemic, that was bomb. Like that was so, like, especially it's very New York, you know, it's very East Coast, like the block party, the whole thing. So, you know, I was just loving it anyway. But I was like, yo, it was more important for them and other people. So I know people who are supposed to get married in this time. And one of my girlfriends actually tagged her fiance because I posted it on my Facebook.
Oh, man.
And one of my girlfriends tagged her fiance. He tagged him with the eyeballs like,
We can still make it.
We can still make this happen.
Look, I mean, in a man's perspective, it's possible that could be a blessing to do it now, because you like got to cut out catering. You got to cut out all these, you know what I'm saying? Like all these, this venue, all this, well, not the venue, maybe, but like don't need to be such a big venue.
You ain't paying for all them.
Smart, really smart.
Mm-hmm.
However, they still had some vendors. I think, I'm not sure if they had a DJ, but they definitely had a florist, and they florals, like that was a lot of money for
That's crazy.
But again, like you said, they're not paying per head or paying the freaking Ritz-Carlton to get their space. So yeah, you're right.
And it was a very elegant, simple affair. And what was cool about it was they planned every detail of it like they would a regular wedding. So I think they wrote all the guests that were coming, like, because a couple people did fly in or came in from the city, and they like wrote their names in chalk on the sidewalk where they were supposed to stand 6 feet apart. And then they had everyone who had like a FaceTime buddy for the people who couldn't fly in for the ceremony. So as Elaine was coming down the aisle, then everyone had, which was like the block of the street, and everyone had like their FaceTime person for like his mom and her mom and like, you know, their dad and their auntie. And so as she was walking, so it felt like everybody was still there, even though they weren't. And then their pastor was also on FaceTime. So it was like a really cool, inventive way to be creative with the day and, you know, not let the pandemic stop the love, which was cool. So I was here for it. We was all here for it here at the Intermission Podcast, because we know y'all all here because, you know, y'all saw the title, Men Are Trash. You know, people have a lot of feelings and emotions around this topic, guys and girls. All the girls like, that's right, they are trash. A lot of them actually was like, they need healing. They have a lot of potential. Like, I was like, okay, y'all are quite kind. So however you ended up getting here, Men Are Trash is the topic in this series. We started.
No, I think it said all men, right?
No.
I mean,
No, okay, no.
That was part of our question, but the series, Men Are Trash, is a definitive sentence.
Okay.
Last week's episodes were Are They, where we kind of weighed out our sort of options and questions about what we had around this topic. Our answer collectively was no, all men are not trash. But Jess, what's the quote?
Sorry. I'm never ready. But some of them stand a little too close to the garbage.
Standing a little close to the garbage. So what we were saying was we have sort of a criteria of not just men that are trash, but women that are trash, people that can be trash if some of these things are not in place. So we talked about communication, sort of making that a lifestyle of a lack of communication, or not necessarily having the courageous conversations that need to be had so that your expectations can be met. We talked about your evolutionary journey as a person, right? Like, we all are hopefully evolving, trying to do better. We're not trying to plateau in a particular space or situation. So we wanted to talk about men being able to identify where they are in their journey and being able to articulate that as clearly as possible. We talked about emotional baggage, which is what we call it as women. I don't know what y'all call it as men, but childhood trauma, not unpacking your last relationships, not unpacking your personal traumas that you carry from relationship to relationship, and that can kind of get in your way. And then anywhere that you feel like, you know, ego, pride, and selfishness, you are making that a consistent habit and really not necessarily trying to change that. We think that those elements all together can make you trash. And we're not saying you have to have all those elements together all at once, because we're all on a journey, right? Nobody is expecting perfection, but progression, most definitely. So we want to start with communication in terms of dating relationships, because we know that's why most of y'all came, because y'all like, I have an issue with this nigga I've been dating for X amount of time, and blah, blah, blah. So we already know. So we're here to, you know, get some things straight, okay? So we're talking about in dating relationships specifically. So when y'all are first talking to a young lady, communication wise, you know, sometimes you go from you might be texting a person to FaceTiming a person to DMing a person, and like all these various forms of communication have meanings to it, or like different times where you sort of want to talk to a person based on different things. So from your own experience, what is you all sort of primary modes of communication? Or like, do you start with a young lady in one and then you be like, she's always going to be the DMs girl? Or is she going eventually be able to text you or FaceTime you? You know, how do you make those distinctions? So whoever wants to go first.
I think I went first on the last one, so I can let you go first on this.
All right. I'm old school. I'm an old man now, so I like to talk on the phone. You know what I mean? Like I'll text a couple times, but if we getting into a text or a DM that's going too long, like a bunch of paragraph here, then they got a paragraph, then I got a paragraph, or even small, it keeps going down and down and down. I'm like, we could call and talk about this. You know what I mean? And we can get talking on there, and I like to just talk to people. So I'm not a fan of texting too much, because texting is like a speed bump to my life. Because if I look at the phone, oh, that's funny. I text back and put it down. Now I want to get back to something. Ding, now I got to stop. Now I got to look at it again. I'm like, if I'm going to make an event out of this conversation, I'm going to make an event out of this conversation. Like I'm going to make an open and close event, so I can get back to work after, or just get back to my life, because I like to live in the moments I'm in. So I could be a terrible texter, because somebody texts me, I'll text her. I will be in like a little conversation for a second. If I put that phone down and wander off, I don't keep my phone, and I start to live life where I am. You know what I mean? So
That's actually legit. Night, what you got for that?
What I got for that? Well, one, it depends on how we met. That's the first part. Like, what if we met on Tinder? You know what I mean? So if we met on Tinder, it's gonna start out with it's gonna start out in the Tinder app, and then if we feel that we need to take it off like of there, then I'll move to text with somebody, right? But if I meet somebody out at a party, and we already just been communicating, and the vibe was cool, like I don't mind a phone call here and there. For me, it just depends on the situation. There's no black or white. I definitely don't communicate through social media. That's not my stilo. That's not my stilo at all. Communicating through social media, maybe I'll send a meme or something if we already got that type of rapport. But in terms of like actual communication, it's either texting or phone calls, and that I think depends on the relationship. Like Brandon was saying, if we're gonna make it an event, let's just get on the phone or FaceTime. But you got to make FaceTime meetings nowadays with folks. You can't just be FaceTiming out the blue unless y'all got that type of relationship.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, FaceTime is definitely one of those things where I either know you, or if we met through a new age way, some type of dating app, and I'm like questioning if it's really you or not, then we're gonna have to get on this FaceTime. And hey, what you doing? Like, hey, let's get on the FaceTime. Because if I feel that you ain't been trying to meet up or something, or just something seems off, I'm gonna try to see what it looks like on the FaceTime. And if you're not willing to do that, then all right, we ain't got nothing else to talk about. So that's another situation I do with FaceTime.
Oh, I love that. Hey, I have a question, a follow up to that. Like, how do y'all, what vehicle do y'all use to communicate the hard stuff? Like, y'all gotta have like, yo, I don't like you no more, or whatever. Like, whatever that conversation is. Do you text it, FaceTime it, or call?
Or do you ghost?
Or do you ghost? Because that's the next topic. So go ahead.
Are we texting? I don't like you no more. That's what folks is doing out here. Y'all don't like you no more. Last night was trash. Boom, like. Shoot, I mean, if it's a hard conversation, like I need to have that in person. If it's something hard, I prefer to just, again, I would assume if it's something hard, that means to me, like we already should have that relationship, because if we don't, then it's not a hard conversation.
That's true.
That's for me though.
That's true, because you don't really have a relationship. If it's somebody like you talk to for a couple of days, and it's not like,
that ain't hard.
That's not hard. It's just like, I don't think this is gonna work.
Yeah. I called people. I've called them and said it to them.
Keep it real, Brandon. Keep it real.
I mean, yeah, like you said, because if it's like something, and I mean, I'm different strokes, but I don't, especially if it's somebody attractive that I've already been close to or wanted to get close to, but I don't like. Sometimes it's like, yo, I don't even want to get close to you in the same space, person to person, because that attraction might try to lie to me and rope me back in. So it's like a nice phone call, just you know, because it reminds you of the person inside that body that you don't like. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because you be out there, you show up, and they show up in that nice outfit and everything. Like, damn, really?
What was I saying?
What was I going to tell? And then, you know, what was I going to tell this person? I see you on Friday, I guess. So we can talk. Like, you know, like, nah. You know, but a phone call, they be like, their attitude still can sound stank, their voice that you still don't like, and all that. You like, yeah, that's right. That's it. You know? So I know what I remember. I remember what I need to say.
That's funny. You remember the person on the inside you don't like. That's
great quotable. It's a great quotable.
Mm-hmm. Hey, look. Physical and sex, yo, that joint mess up your decision making. You know, it mess it like physical to your eyes, depending on who you've been. And I grew up in a lustful life. You know what I mean? Like a promiscuous kind of lustful life. Like me and my boys, we were still, because like I said, maybe I said I was growing up with law enforcement and black, all that, whatever. But we were still coming up through some stuff. And so we were praising some things, you know.
So.
I mean, yeah, I definitely, I'm thinking about like had to make a phone call. I don't think I made like a phone call like, yo, I need to talk, like, you know, maybe it started out with a text, like the person's like, I need to talk to you or something like that. But I don't think I've made a phone call to specifically tell you I don't like you no more or something like that.
So do you just ghost? How do you transition out of that?
Do I ghost? I for sure ghosted. My ghosting has evolved though. I'll say that.
How? Please tell us.
There's levels to this shit. Everybody. There's levels. People about to be like, yo, he's trash. I thought he was cool. He's trash. Yo. All right. So with ghosting, I remember one time because before I was back and forth between Paris and New York, and being like living in both places, like meeting people was, you know, it wasn't like I was out in the city all the time. So meeting people became like Tinder was like real easy for that. So went out with this young lady. She was nice. She just wasn't clicking for me, right? But she had a great time. She had a great time, you know, and she's like, I can't wait to do this again. And I was like, you know, and at first, like when we ended it, I was like, maybe. And then after I like slept on it, I was like, nah, I can't. I'm not going to get out with this person. And I definitely owed her, I should have handled that differently. I should have told her, you know, I'm not really feeling it, boom, boom, boom. Because I knew that she was in it at that point. I happened to run into her. And you in New York, like to run into somebody after you ghost them in New York, yo, I was doing some work. I'm walking down the street. She's all night, and I'm like, oh dang! And she was with her homegirl. She's like, can I talk to you? And you know, I chopped it up with her. But it was definitely like she was hurt, and I saw like usually when you ghost somebody, you don't see the hurt. So it's easy to just kind of like, oh well, it's all good. But that was the first where I was like, oh, I've affected this person. She's in her mind working all types of scenarios in her head. And I was like, oh, I can't rock like that. That's foul. So I grew from that. But there are times where I've still had to ghost somebody. And those situations come when I feel that you are detrimental to my mental health. And I feel that you as a person, if you're somebody that's manipulative, to me, like, you know if you're a manipulative person, you know if you're an unhealthy person. It's saying like, and I don't need to sit down with you or talk to you. I don't like, if I feel that, yeah, I don't owe that person that level of, that it's not even about respect. I owe myself more than I owe them any type of explanation. because you know what you're doing, or you should know because we're grown. So if I feel that somebody's toxic, because if you're toxic, I've already said something before. It's not something that happens, and I've already said something. So if certain behaviors continue, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna back up. And that's just been out of what I feel like protecting myself more than anything. So it's not out of maliciousness, like, oh, I don't want to. It's just like, nah, I don't need this energy. I don't feel like dealing with this energy.
And we have talked about that as well in terms of, because I think what you just spoke to in that particular scenario, you know, self-awareness of you knowing the things that, you know, you're willing to put up with, what you're willing not to, like how certain things affect you. And then in terms of this, you know, talking about communication being that we hope would not be trash, really addressing those things head on first, to say like you said, if you're toxic, I probably already addressed it with you. So if I've already addressed it with you and it doesn't change, now, you know, this thing might be a pattern with this person. And it's something that you know, either need to continue to address or decide, you know what, like that's not for me. You know, you're not really growing or evolving in this area. So you're not a person that I don't necessarily feel like is good for me to deal with. Which we also would like to encourage people to do. I think that's a beautiful story to sort of highlight, like, you know, say something, don't just be like, I'm finna ghost, which I think technology makes it a lot easier to ghost, like a lot easier. But I love that you also got caught up in the streets as well, Mike.
Yo, I should add though, for real, I should add though that like if it's like ghosting doesn't typically happen, like even like in the past before I like learned that lesson, it doesn't happen with folks that I have like a long-term committed type of relationship with, like a real rapport with. It's usually in situations where we've only been in each other's lives for a hot second. Mm-hmm. So it's usually like in those situations, it's then red flags come real quick. It's like, okay, I gotta back up.
I feel like even on those, you know, maybe some of them don't, like, of course, you're giving us your examples why you probably wouldn't say anything if it's toxic or anything. But them relationships, like, probably should know. Like, hey, girl, you crazy? I'm out. I know that's hard to say, but because some people, like, even like your girl who ran into you, you got to see, like, she was still hurt, even though it was such a small, it was one date. You know, and she was already like, dang, that's a bummer, because she thought you was bomb and she thought everything was going good. And so now she in her head, like, what's wrong with me? And whatever. And so, like, you know, I ain't against ghosting completely, but I'll be like, some people, yeah, we probably should figure out how to close that door.
What would y'all want to hear? Go ahead.
I've definitely ghosted people from the app.
Oh,
I have, and I probably should have said why. Like Homeboy, who was like, Your Majesty, and was like,
he was weird, yo.
He was like, what was that? We had one phone conversation. We did talk on the phone for a long time. This is a few months ago, like probably like September, October, and we had like I don't know, it doesn't matter what it was, but I want to say January. Yeah, top of the year. And we had like a really long conversation on the phone. He seemed cool. And then the next day he texted me and was like, Your Majesty, first of all. And I was like, whoa. And then he was like, have a good day, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then at the end of the text, it said, I think I was on set. He was like, have a good time on set today and make me proud.
Make me proud.
Make me proud.
Your Majesty was how he led though, because I was like, I'm still stuck there. That
brother probably into cosplay. Maybe that's what.
That's okay. That's
fine. Maybe that's the type of person he was though. But it, you know.
But make me proud, nigga. I don't know you. Like, I'm so that for somebody like me, and I had another guy who kept like saying, well, since we're dating now, like we've had like
hey Vaughn, that's a real thing too. Overcommitment too early, because I mean, like that makes right there. somewhat here too, but like when I had some young lady, you know, she just started really, and she was of a different persuasion, but I think she was reading the book on how to get black men, right? And so like
Get Out book,
like,
the Get Out book,
the Get Out book,
the
right?
Get Out manual.
Yeah, something, because this chick was just, and I wasn't dating her, we were cool, but it was just like she was so complimentive. Like she would compliment things that she didn't know about me. You know what I mean? She's like, I'm sure you can do that. I'm like, you don't know. You know, like it's just like it was overt, too much. It was just like, you know, when somebody is just trying to stroke your ego or something, but it's like without substance. You know what I'm saying? So like, kind of like you saying them, your majesty, your queenship, your whatever. It's like you're running a script right now. You know what I'm saying? Like something you're not. Yeah, make me proud. Like, you're not talking to me. You're talking to the script that you believe is going to work to get me. You know what I mean? And so when somebody starts doing that kind of stuff, then they end up sending me some. You know, I didn't eat all day. They sent me some food and stuff like that to like just going in, and like, yeah, I was just like, okay, this is okay. And I didn't agree to date the person, but just after I knew him, but then talked to him one time, and then it just started, like they just started. I'm trying to code it a little bit too.
Trying to code it.
They started doing.
You sent you food, B?
Huh?
She sent you food?
Send me food.
Does she know where you live?
Yeah, well, I was gonna turn down food. Y'all ladies get taken out all the time, so why should I turn down food? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, we ain't mad at it.
Right.
But Brandon, so how did you end that though? Did you ghost her?
I kind of ghosted for a second.
Definitely ghosted.
Don't get me in trouble. I kind of ghosted.
Sometimes you gotta ghost. Women be ghosting too. Women be ghosting a lot, especially on the app.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it'd be a cool conversation. And for me, I don't even take it personally. For me, in my head, I'm like, oh, I get it. So, like, if you on the app and you match with 1,100 guys or however many go, because dudes a lot more dudes is gonna match with you, right? So there's so many of us that probably trying to have the conversation. So if you ain't necessarily sparking a minute, like, they just stop talking to you. That's a ghost. It's like the conversation go all day. It's like, and then she don't respond to that last question, and it's like, damn, it's been 3 days. All right, you get it. She ain't gonna hit you back, and I'm not about to be the dude that's over here like, hey, so how you been? Like, I'm not about to play myself like that. Like, I get it. It's somebody else sparked your interest maybe, or maybe you just wasn't checking out your app like that. But whatever it is, I definitely know on dating apps that women be ghosting a lot.
Yeah, I had a bad habit of putting the app on my phone and taking it off. It's like, I would have a bad experience and I'd be like, you know what, I'm done. And then I would just get off. But if there was someone I was interested in, I made sure I let them know, like, hey, I'm getting off this app. So here's my number, but I've definitely ghosted.
I haven't done any apps yet, though.
No.
Nah, try
it. Like, try it.
Watch our episode Trapped in the App.
But wait, we're trying to get Jessica on the app, though.
Come on, Jess.
Listen, every week they be like, "We don't get you on the app." I'll be like, "Nah, fam. I watch too much Catfish."
Now you gotta help us.
No, you ain't gonna be catfish. You ain't gonna be catfish.
Huh?
Don't be going over nobody's house, ladies.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
I could write a book on the app. That's cool.
Right, though, you gotta help us get Jess on the app, though.
Nah. Come on, man. It's not gonna happen.
Hey, there's safety in it. Like, we're in quarantine. You ain't going out to meet nobody anyways. It's the perfect time.
Nice.
Oh, no,
Am I gonna get on the app? Huh?
Some people is out there meeting. Like, this is, some people getting it off. Some people getting it off right now. They meet it on the app and they like, yo, it is what it is. So, you can still meet people, still meet people and during this time.
People are more understanding when you don't want to meet because we're in quarantine. That's what
Exactly. Okay.
So this is the perfect time to add the app, Jazz.
Not gonna happen. Y'all should get B on that team. B sound like he will be down.
If Brandon sign up, you gotta sign up too.
Yep.
Look at y'all. They're roping me in, Jess.
Nah, fam.
Roping me into this. Boy.
I ain't on apps no more.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I don't like those conversations all the time. Because Vaughn know me. Y'all all know me, but me and Vaughn talked about it sometimes. I don't even date like that a lot, just because I don't want to. Because I've hurt people before, and I don't want to. So I just don't. And I made a because like I said, I used to have a promiscuous past, all this stuff. So I didn't even like going after somebody that I was attracted to their body or something like that for that reason. So like I would wait and wait for sparks to happen, because there's only a few young ladies in my life that I've actually put energy moved on to go after. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, man, this is some bull, because you end up having to hurt somebody when you go after them for a certain thing. And this is just me, but like I would end up hurting somebody when I go after, like, damn, she fine, I'm about to go at it. You know what I mean? And I knew why I was going at it, because she was fine in one dimension. You know what I mean? And so like I kind of had to cut back on that, and that's why I didn't even want to jump on apps, because I'm like, I can get along with people. I'm a kind of a country kind of guy, so I can get along with somebody. And like Knight said, they might think that everything's going great, and that's just my default, that I get along with everybody. But I'll be like, I'm not really feeling them for this, you know, for a relationship. I just can talk. I can talk about a lot of subjects, and we can sound like we have a lot of chemistry. But
we talked about that recently, like probably a few months ago. We talked about that, and you were like, you know, I realized that I was befriending women, and you know, we were cool, but I made them feel like it was more than what it was. But you realized that you were doing that. You know what I mean? You were like, yo, I have to not do that, because she feels like it's this, but it's really that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which brings us back to, you know, a level of communication, which I think is what ghosting, you know, it's usually something you don't feel like you want to communicate to somebody. So you're like, I'm just finna fall back. And I think, you know, in this particular situation, you know, that you just mentioned Vaughn and B about, you know, how, so like Brandon, in that scenario, like how would you be clear with, you know, communicate with a particular person? Like, you're just being friendly, it's nothing beyond that. Because I think to the point of what we were talking about earlier is like, men and women for various reasons get more involved based on the interaction than what's necessarily being put out. They're like, well, you know, this happened and that happened, and we checked off the boxes here and this, that, and the third. So that means we date now, we go together now. You like, wait a minute now, I'm not trying to. So help the people. What are some ways that you can, you know, maybe communicate better about those sorts of things, so people don't end up out here in the ghost nation, which is expanding?
Well, look, one thing I knew to myself was, all right, if you're not feeling them off the top, but y'all having a good time talking, I was like, anybody, this is the law to myself. I was like, anybody that you considering a friend and not a person of interest, you should be able to talk about other girls of interest in front of them. You know what I mean? Like, and so I said, like, so I would talk about the possibility of like, yeah, I ran into this girl, she's cute, and da-da. You know what I mean? So you start dropping out hints that my eyes are open at, you know, at in a different direction, not yours. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And it sounds, but it's like, what's it called? You know what I mean? You say words like that kind of things, because you'll hear it from them, like, oh, yeah, they'll say, I don't want to hear about that. You know what I mean? And somebody that calls themselves your friend or sister or something like that, and they don't want to talk about, you know, what you might be interested in, then, you know, you're kind of training their ears to understand that you're not going that direction. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just knowing your yourself, and knowing what you do when you're interested in somebody, and then not doing that. You know what I mean? Because, you know, we got bedtime voices, we got pushed into the phone voices. You know what I mean? So you know when you're doing these things and you talking to a person and all that stuff, and now you're like, what? Oh, this is my friend. You know, like, yeah. So it's like me, I had to police a lot of my actions because I was trying to get out of the me I was. You know what I mean? So I had to police a lot of my actions. So I haven't even done that in a long time. You know what I mean? I haven't even fostered one of those relationships, those false friend relationships in a good long time.
Self-awareness.
Evolving from being trash.
Stepping away from the standard trash.
Yeah. Bro, I see you.
No more Oscar. I have an address on Sesame Street.
Hey. Yo. Night, what about you? You have any good ways to further communicate so people don't end up in the ghost nation? Because to Brandon's point, I think that's a great way to like test the waters. Because as we say here all the time, we're not about hurting people's feelings. We're not about, emasculating men or like making women feel bad. Like you ain't got to tear people down in order to communicate well. But I think that's a great point that Brandon made of a way that you can sort of put the feelers out there that this isn't what they thinking it is without, being like, no, I don't like you. Why would you ever think that? Like, we're not talking about that. I'm not advocating that. Night, what about you? You got anything to add?
Yeah, I got something to add. For me, I try to let it be known what it is from the jump, and also like who I am from the jump as well. And one of the things, and it's funny that this is the topic, because one of the things I used to say, I used to actually tell people like, somebody like, oh, I'm trash. Like, from the beginning, I used to say that.
That's game.
That's exact word. Like, he's like, it's gay. It's like, I'm like, nah, because what would end up happening is, it's like people either got this idea, they have this idea of me, or they're like, oh, you live here, you travel the world, like, oh, you got just your shit together. I'm like, or, like, and whatever it is, I just had to I had to cut that. Like, oh, you're a good person. And I would always say, I'm like, you think that, but there's somebody else out there, and there's a number of people out there that say the exact opposite. Because to somebody else, I've been trash. Mm-hmm. And I'm not like, I just don't want you to have no expectation in terms of, I'm gonna be like, I'm always evolving, I'm always growing. And I'm, and the next day version of myself is always better than the last, right? But that used to be like one of my things, and like, people like, don't be saying that, you projecting. I'm like, nah, I just don't like. I also was real with myself when I was being trash. Like, I knew that my intentions were not, so. And some people say, no, that's the exact opposite of trash, because like, no, you being upfront, they know what it is. I'm like, yeah, but they can like trash for lack of a better word, because it's like, yo, I'm just out here doing me and living my best life. So I definitely used to say that from the jump, or some other things I used to say would just be, what I'm after or what I'm not after. That was the communication for me. So like Pimp C said, if you was a cartoon character on your first album, you got to be a cartoon character on your last album. You can't be switching it up, mid game. You can't be some dude that's out here, being all lovey-dovey and romantic, like telling her you want this, and then y'all halfway into it, 3 months later, you just completely turn a 180. Like, to me, that's the ultimate trash. It's like you was just being manipulative and a con artist to this person. So I'm gonna let you know what it is from jump. That's like, so if you think that you're not gonna get a false character out of it.
So with that, right, in this day and age, I mean, we're all grown. Is there an actual like process of asking someone to be your girlfriend, or asking them to court, or asking them to move forward? Like, do y'all actually, is there a line? Because I feel like sometimes we date people and then all of a sudden you're in a relationship. Like, there was never any clear
progression,
clear line of where it happened. It just happened, and it's like, oh yeah, that's my boyfriend.
Don't nothing just happen. No, I'm messing with. I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? This is like all of a sudden y'all say y'all boyfriend and girlfriend, but there was never any clear, like, when does it become clear that we're monogamous now? Because at the point when you're both dating, it's like, I recently, a couple months ago, did on my own thing, like about talking about dating and how dating in the world is just always, people think, oh, when you're dating multiple people, that's not right. But they're thinking you're dating, having sex with all these people. But it's like, no, I'm dating people to see, who I like. But like when two people like each other the most, like what happens? Like you just make that line, or you just, I don't know. It's difficult being dating at this age.
How y'all communicate? Girl, you mine.
Yeah, like how y'all communicate, I want you to be my girl. I don't want you to talk to nobody else. I want it to be me and you.
Just like that.
Very aggressive. You
right. Like I'm going. Like, don't be a menace.
Oh.
Very aggressively.
Yes. You going first, sir, or?
Night was chuckling over there.
Yeah, what?
She was like, I'm beat that dude.
Yo,
I like
honestly, I'm laughing because I was telling our DJ homie before, like, we was having a conversation earlier about this, and I definitely have ended up in like situations where it wasn't no discussion. It just kind of, it's like, oh, we've been rocking for a minute, and and I'm not going to sit. It'd be funny when a dude be like, damn, I don't know why she think I'm her boyfriend, bro, because you've been with her for 6 months. Like, y'all talk every day, y'all all like, and so when a dude flips on a girl like that's funny to me. But depending on how like y'all rocking, but I've definitely just been in situations. I'm like, yo, this is like, she'll say something. Like, I know the gang too. Like, she'll say something where it's like, oh yeah, so my friend was asking, what were you and your boyfriend doing today?
Right.
Oh, and so that's a confrontational thing, right? Because if I go anywhere out of that, it's like, okay, we gotta have this conversation. So it's really a test. And for me, like, if I've been rocking with you, if we've been rocking, man, it's a title to me. It's a title that really, like, this. The connection means something. The connection means something. And I think a lot of times, like, if that's how you feel, like, if that's how you want to rock it, like, if you need that rock with it. I'm not saying that doesn't mean that you're not. It's like, okay, that's where we rock it at. That's where you at mentally. Cool. There have also been like situations where it's like, yeah, well, I've definitely, asked and like talked, like we had a full conversation about it. This is what I want to do. This is my plan. But I think over time, that's just kind of deteriorated. And I just kind of more so go with how, like, in the moment of how, like, if we've been rocking for a minute, then by default, I guess that means that you're my partner. You're the only person I'm rocking with. And it just kind of naturally flows. But that's me, because I also don't necessarily I don't go in with any expectations with anything anymore. I just let things manifest how they manifest.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm a old school. I miss the old school days of, like, the courting and the will you be my girl. And I say I miss it because, like, I see them things being necessary for the woman's even for both the man and the woman, their mental peace sometimes, because for the woman, they like for me, if I'm like situation shipping it up to a point, I hate for myself when it gets to the point that they say, so what are we doing, or what is this? If I hear that before I've made a point, then I'm like, damn it, B, you messed up, you lost, you did too much, you weren't clear, you didn't lead this situation. You know what I mean? And for me, like in my journey as a man, I'm like, okay, I want to be able to tell a woman what I want from her. You know what I mean? That like, you know, because and when I say it helps our mental, it's like it helps the ladies' mental, because a woman likes to hear that, you know, a man has made a declarative statement, a declarative gesture that I want to be with you. You know what I mean? Like, because I've noted, I say this from experience, that when you wandered into it, they're cool with it, but then you see the discontentment. Sorry, that's my phone. You see the discontentment, you know, throughout the relationship when there wasn't a statement made. And like I said, it helps. Like, what's it called?
There she is.
Right now.
There she is right now. Like, I told you, this ain't. Like, I'm drawing lines.
You ghosting on me, Brandon?
Y'all making me ghost now. Stop. No, that's not. Y'all gonna make me explain myself. That was no. But no. I so now I do like to get to the point where I want to say, hey, I want you to be my girl, and because I know that, like, that helps me know that I'm serious too. You know what I mean? Like, it helps me to know that, all right, you about to cross a line, you're gonna commit, you're gonna be a dude, a man who like, you know, now owns up and makes himself accountable to some actions from here on. You know what I mean? Like, so it's my journey where I'm like, yo, I want to say this is what it is. You know what I mean? Because I see you. I've done situationships so long and plenty. Like my last, one situationship was lasting for like 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, where we just, I mean, because it was situationship. That was just, you could call it just what it was, but it was like, what's it called? It was like, you talk about, I say situationship. It was just
your girlfriend, bro. It's called.
Yeah. but see, that was something else, because you weren't really going. Yeah, exactly. Say that, Vaughn. What'd you say?
In his mind, it wasn't his girlfriend.
Well, in actions, neither wasn't really girlfriend. That was like, you know, that situation, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? But like, but we talked about, it was on and off kind of thing. But it was like, where we talk about, like, I even would say truthfully, I'd be like, yo, this ain't serving us. This ain't helping us. You know what I mean? We're not being serious with each other. We don't really want this from each other. So why are we allowing ourselves? We just wanted comfort in each other and everything like that. And so I just saw that I wasn't growing from that. I wasn't getting to be the man I wanted to be from that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, why keep someone around that I didn't want to be with? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, I started seeing my time and their time be wasted, and us be okay with wasting our time. So it wasn't even like she didn't know that I didn't want to be with her. She knew, I knew, we knew, but we just liked each other's comfort. You know what I mean? Like, the intimacy. You know what I mean? So it was just like, we're wasting each other's time. So, you know, so from there, I'm like, dude, I don't want to be with nobody, or I want to be with somebody.
I feel that. That's definitely, and that's, like you're saying, like, once you get to that side of the journey, because, like, even though I've had those other situations too, it's now more of a place of, I'm going to say what it is that I want. And if you rocking with it, you rocking with it. If you're not, then let me rock somewhere else, you know? But yeah, it's definitely, I think a lot of us go through that phase of having situationships and things happening. And I think that's a part of the process. As much as I'm sure women would like us to already have that part together, unfortunately, it's one of those lessons that you kind of gotta learn some of these things. Some dudes get it earlier. Some dudes have been taught the game earlier, and at least in terms of that, and, you know, soaked it in a little bit differently. But a lot of us definitely just kind of got to go bump our heads a few times and figure this thing out.
And I actually had a thought too, from your title, where you say men are trash, or even the question says, are all men trash? And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but I feel like it ain't the men who's trash, because God made a bunch of men. You know what I mean? He made a lot of us. And I'm talking about black men in particular too now. But I'm like, he made us. He ain't make us to be trash. You know what I'm saying? So I say men's inputs are trash. What's being inputted into us men are trash, and we're being out here left to navigate these waters and become right by any means necessary. And some of us don't grab the means early. You know what I mean? Because what I noticed is if you even look at the male inputs from TV, you know what I mean? Like you see Saved by the Bell, you see all these things when we were growing up. You got to see white boys turn around and make these good decisions to go talk to the person and everything. But then we would see, you know, Martin and Will Smith and them kind of, mama, no, and avoid a situation until they get caught. You know what I mean? So you would see the white boys on TV sometimes like, yeah, you're right, I got to go do this. Hey, we need to talk. You know what I mean? You see it countless times through many movies. But us black dudes, we didn't see that. We didn't get to see, you know, so whether you had a father or not, because I know white dudes, this is one thing I know plenty of white dudes who had plenty of hard luck stories. Like their fathers left their mothers and everything like that. But when they grow up watching TV where they see, you know, all these other good inputs of who models of them being somebody else, they got a myriad of choices of who they want to model. You know what I mean? Yeah. But black men, whether we grew up with fathers or not, we look at it and we see the best friend, we see the womanizer, we see the criminal, we see the you know, we see the asexual dude who is with the white people all the time, but somehow everybody else got a wife, but he ain't got no wife. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about Criminal Minds. Yeah, I see Shamar Moore. He had a woman one time and that didn't work and that was off. But everybody else had a nice little relationship, had a wife that they go home to, had a love story, a B story to it. But you don't see the black person. You know, so it's like we out here not getting even facts that it's cool to broach hard subjects. We're not even getting the input that it's cool to bring up hard subjects. You know what I mean? And so we got to figure that out. We got to figure it out through hurting people. Like, man, this ain't cool. I don't like, how many times I got to hurt somebody? Oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, so that's just history on it. It's like, it still doesn't make it right. I ain't making no excuse for it, but I'm just saying that, like, so I'm just saying, no, men ain't trash, but you know, our inputs have been trash. And so
how important is it? I know the answer to this that you're probably going to say, but how important is it for men to seek out mentorship, role models? Like, if that's something that you want to do, if you want to be a better man, like, then where do you learn it from? Especially the boy who doesn't have a father, or the boy who has a father, but the father is not a good influence in that area. Because plenty of people have fathers, but the fathers aren't necessarily the best input. Like their advice maybe not be, you know, what they need for that next step. If their father is, you know, trash, then they're going to pass down their trash, you know, tendency. So then I feel like men, like when we were talking about in our last episode, how women, we have so many things. We have the self-help books, we have the classes, we have the mentorships, we have the discipleships, we have all the year-long courses, while you guys have the 6-week courses. You know what I'm saying? Like the difference in the preparation that women are always taught to prepare for marriage, prepare for this, prepare for your husbands. I spoke last time too about how when you guys do like the Telios class at church, it was recommended for the wives and fiancés to read the book. But have y'all ever been told to read Breaking Free? Have y'all ever been told to read Me Management? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always taught to know like what our man is learning or how they are progressing, but you guys are never taught like what we're doing and how you guys can be better, you know, for us.
Yeah. And it's a twofold thing in my mind, because I'm thinking, one, yes, a child should seek out, after a certain age, should seek out goodness and then try to figure out what the right way to approach that. Not goodness, but like, you know, just the better ways. But then it's on men like me, men like Knight, men like to not be selfish, because I think that's another thing where, you know, it's like, oh, I found the way. Thank God. And I'm rolling them and I'm not even trying to look back and see how younger people are missing the mark for themselves. You know what I mean? Because it's like I mean, Yeah, it's just not being selfish, honestly, because I can't put it on the young boys who don't know. Like Knight said, you know, we're different spectrums. There's a whole broad spectrum to some kids. They just don't know. You know what I mean? Like they don't know. They growing up in a place that's telling them something is right, and they don't get to find out it's wrong until, you know, years down the years of practicing the wrong thing down the line. You know what I mean? And now they got to unlearn some stuff and everything. So it's like it's on us. But I think that was my issue with the criminality thing is it can come from somebody's real life, and somebody else can have one area of real life, but it seems like we all kind of huddle up under the image. You know what I mean? Like our whole spectrum gets placed up under the image. It's one thing if that image was something that was being put out in a partition, and then a fluent image was being put out in a partition of us, and then a scientific image was being put out of us, and then, you know, but it's like hip hop is a Black culture thing. You know, hip hop gets to be seen as the Black culture when we're so much more than just hip hop. So knowing that's, you know, knowing anybody that does know that has to reach to other people who know that thing is polluting their mind. So if I know that, you know, some lyrics or some movies or some TV shows or some fads are polluting some kids' minds, and I know I didn't like what I learned, I gotta go try to teach them. You know what I mean? And it ain't just kids, because I mean, as we do men's groups, you know, some brothers, they like, yo, that's real. You know what I mean? Like you know, it's just you can't imagine how long you can go in this life without knowing something. But it can go all the way to 40, shoot. You know what I'm saying? And beyond. So it's like the minute you find a good way that has started affecting people differently, and you see a good effect from it, you might want to share it.
Knight, you got anything to speak to that?
No, I mean, like, I guess, like, it's in terms of like the mentor things, I agree. I think that as when we go back, we should definitely be reaching back to younger brothers, you know, and younger sisters as well. Like we should definitely be reaching back. And then it gets to a certain point, you got to start reaching out. Like you got to start reaching out yourself at a certain point. And I think you naturally don't feel that. And I also think that you can have mentors throughout your whole life. I don't care who, you know, what age you is. You know, you could be in your 80s, but you know, you could bounce things off of your 82-year-old friend in the retirement home or wherever you at. But it does, like, growth never stops. Like we should never think that, oh, now I know it. For myself, I'm always seeking counsel in all aspects of my life. And for me, it's also not like I'm not just seeking counsel from Black men, but I'm also seeking counsel from Black women. I think, you know, I don't, because I think that life is about balance, and I think you need both energies to, you know, to maneuver through this world. So I take, and to get a holistic, you know, view of the world and the view of things. So for me, it's just like, seek out as many mentors as possible from different walks of life, not just ones that just fit your, like, I think the ones that look like you, so as a Black man, I think the most important mentor for me is another Black man. That's the most important one. And then from there, like, but you need all of it though. You need all of it. That's all I got to say really on that part.
No, I agree. I feel like you should have mentorship forever until you're not here no more. Yeah. Everybody, no matter how old you are, you should have a mentor, and you should seek out mentorship. Like I knew I wanted mentors. You should have a mentor for business, a mentor for spirituality, a mentor for whatever, for marriage, you know, whatever it is. You should always have someone who's older and wiser, or just wiser. Because actually, right, one of my marriage mentor couples were younger than me, but they've been married. You know what I mean? So it's like, I know I can still glean from them when the time comes. I can still get what I need from them because they are wise in marriage. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
So I think we've covered some good ground. I mean, we got into the space where we want our white allies to do better. We talked about communication, right? And I think for me, communication is important because as our illustrious guests have stated, that gives people expectations, right? I think that whenever one person's expectation is not being met, or they have an idea of what the expectations are and they feel like that's not happening, then frustration happens and heartbreaks happen. And so I think throughout us sort of discussing communication, we've shown that, the way to alleviate that is to actually communicate real words out of your own mouth, or via text or FaceTime or whatever, depending on the conversation, but to be clear and as straightforward with someone as you can be, so that some of those things can be avoided. And of course, everything is about evolving, maturing and going forward, having people who have maybe had your exact same experience or maybe a different experience, but can speak to where you're trying to go, because evolution is important. Being able to recognize where you are in your journey. I think Knight and Brandon have done a great job about really expressing and knowing where they are at a particular place and how they've evolved from one place to another, and that is a continual journey. We have so many more things to talk about. Like, that was like just scratch. I feel like we did a deep dive on communication, but we definitely want to get more into the evolution talk and emotional baggage and that kind of thing, just because we don't think that men necessarily have space to talk about that. So if y'all willing to come back, we can continue this conversation. But I think for today, this has been great, enlightening. Thank you, Knight. Thank you, Brandon, for coming through and sharing your heart and your truth with us. And it's the Intermission Podcast, y'all. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
Bye.
We'd love to hear from our homies, so feel free to email us at intermissionhg, as in homegirls, that's intermissionhg@gmail.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at intermissionhg. Until next time, this has been A Break with Your Homegirls.